What's up, everybody? Ryan Thomas live on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Another year in the books as far as the MLB trade deadline. I actually just wrapped a show prior to this one with a very awesome guest by the name of Zach Sheldon, better known as Maniac of Trainwreck Sports. You got to go to Apple Podcasts, type in the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, click the one that says the Thomas Take Sports Podcast twice. There's another one on there that I got to delete that was just a trial run go to see if it would actually submit to Apple Podcasts, because that whole process is not fun to get your podcast on Apple Podcasts. It took a little bit of time for me, but I was finally able to do it. Happy to do it, and happy to be on Apple Podcasts, obviously. So that being said, also on Spotify, you can tune into any and all episodes of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, featuring the numerous amount of guests I've had on, whether they're from Trainwreck Sports or whether they are former Buffalo Bills players or current Buffalo Bills players. It has been a fun ride. Really am excited to have some MMA guests on the show. One of them is very big. I'm in the process of making that happen. And it has been a process, just putting this show, together, but a healthy process, a great process, and a process that I've really enjoyed. So for anyone that is tuning into the podcast and they want to know where they can get it, they can get it on Apple Podcasts, they can get it on Spotify. You can also follow me on Twitter at Ryan Thomas Take. That's where it's at. That's where all the info is. That's where all the live tweets are. That's where immediate reactions to sports headlines are from me, as well as my Thomas Take Sports Podcast Facebook page. But Twitter is where it's at, and that's where I like to keep it. So follow me on there and interact with me. I'd really enjoy that. So another MLB trade deadline in the books. We had some big deals go down as far as the MLB trade deadline. Deals that I am very pumped up about. Deals that I am very eager to talk about. Primarily a deal that actually just went down right at the 4 o'clock hour, right at the moment that the trade deadline ended. And that was a deal that sent Zach Greinke to the Houston Astros from the Arizona Diamondbacks. And this was a trade that really came out of nowhere. Zach Greinke had a lengthy no-trade clause in his deal. And, he had a lengthy no trade clause, and the Houston Astros were not on that list. So the Diamondbacks traded him to Houston. And that was for a bevy of prospects, the number 3 rated, 4 rated, and 5th rated prospect in the Astros farm system, among a couple others. And then you have the deal where the Cleveland Indians sent Trevor Bauer to the Cincinnati Reds for Yasiel Puig. That included a 3-team trade involving the San Diego Padres. And I love the 3-team trades because you see the angle in which the 3 teams are trying to really make something happen and position themselves for the present and, of course, the future. With the Trevor Bauer trade, you have a player that is known to have a short fuse in Trevor Bauer. You have a player that is known to have a short fuse in Yasiel Puig. And you have Franmil Reyes come from the San Diego Padres to the Cleveland Indians. Franmil Reyes is a very interesting power bat for the Cleveland Indians. I think he's a solid DH in any lineup. So the fact that the Cleveland Indians traded Trevor Bauer, who has had his moments of struggling this year, to the Cincinnati Reds for Yasiel Puig, who is a game-changing player, game-breaking player when healthy and when firing on all cylinders. We've seen that before. And Franmil Reyes, who is one of the better designated hitters in baseball as far as up-and-coming designated hitters. He's got 27 bombs on the season thus far. The Chicago White Sox sent Nate Jones and international pool money to the Rangers. The Tampa Bay Rays traded Jake Faria to the Brewers in exchange for Jesus Aguilar, who has been known to rake on occasion. And Jake Faria, a young pitcher who has had some success in the league, but is probably due for a fresh start, and he's getting just that with the Milwaukee Brewers. The Cubs traded Martin Maldonado to the Astros in exchange for Tony Kemp. And the Brewers also acquire Drew Pomeranz and Ray Black from the Giants. The Oakland Athletics acquired Tanner Roark from the Reds. The Washington Nationals, were the most active team at the trade deadline. They acquired Daniel Hudson, Ronius Elias, and Hunter Strickland. Get some pitching pieces there. Two primarily will probably be in the bullpen. Maybe Hudson will be in the bullpen as well. Only time will tell on that. The Diamondbacks landed a young stud pitcher from the Miami Marlins, that by the name of Zach Gallen. I was actually pretty shocked to see Zach Gallen get traded to the Diamondbacks. Did not expect that. Here's a young pitcher that has a lot of upside, and is a pitcher that I think will be front of the line of that rotation in a few years. A deal that really came forth late is Nick Castellanos. He was traded to the Chicago Cubs from the Detroit Tigers, and Scooter Gennett traded from the Cincinnati Reds to the San Francisco Giants. Corey Dickerson traded from the Pirates to the Phillies, the outfielder. Utility man Jed Gorko traded from the St. Louis Cardinals to the LA Dodgers. The Braves also acquired Shane Green and Mark Melancon. Shane Green for the Detroit Tigers, Mark Melancon for the Giants. They look to shore up that bullpen and try to make some sort of a push towards the playoffs and get a little bit better on that front. So really the three big trades, I think, were all revolved around pitchers. Zach Greinke, Marcus Stroman, and Trevor Bauer, obviously. And the real question is, who got the biggest return? I think if you are a seller, which it appears that the Arizona Diamondbacks were, they got a decent return for Zach Greinke. I think the Cleveland Indians got a great return for Trevor Bauer. They got MLB-ready pieces, whereas the Arizona Diamondbacks, they're embracing the youth movement. And that's usually the double-edged sword of the MLB trade deadline. You're either looking to add on players that are young, that are solid prospects, or you're looking to bring in some MLB-ready talent. And, guys, I went to the Toronto Blue Jays Cleveland Indians game in Toronto, and I looked at the Cleveland Indians, and I said, wow, they need a right fielder. They could use some power in this lineup. Enter in Yasiel Puig and Franmil Reyes. I am a fan of trading pitching for everyday hitting. I like that. And the Cleveland Indians did that. I think that will really help them. They have won, I think, more games than anyone in the American League since the All-Star break. They've really made a big push. They've really tried to make something happen. And I think this trade deadline, you always come in expecting to hear certain names get thrown around. And there were names that were not, that I thought would be moved around. And there were not. So that's kind of shocking to me. I expected Noah Syndergaard to get traded. I expected who's the other one? Madison Bumgarner to get traded. I expected some names to be moved that were not moved. I expected some teams to make some moves, and they were not moved. Really, there are reports now that the San Francisco Giants and the pitcher by the name of Madison Bumgarner are looking to rework a deal. So a deal as far as for the future, extending Madison Bumgarner. That's the goal. They want him to stay and be a Giant for life. And that shocks me because all I've heard as well outside of that talk, prior to that, hearing that talk, prior to the trade deadline being over, is that he was going to get moved, and he did not. I expected the New York Yankees to be far more of a player at this year's trade deadline than they've been in years past. They usually make a decent acquisition at the trade deadline, but I really, truthfully, felt like the Yankees really needed to go out and get that starting pitcher to really fortify that rotation. Whether it's a Syndergaard, whether it's a Bumgarner, whether it's a Stroman or a Greinke, I thought one of those guys was going to go to the Yankees. And to know that none of them did, and to know that some of them weren't even traded, that shocks me. The Boston Red Sox, I thought the Red Sox would be more active, looking for some bullpen help, looking for maybe a Mark Melancon or a Will Green or Shane Green or who's the reliever that I mentioned got traded? It's not coming to me now. Oh, man, dang it. I hate when I do that. But I thought they'd trade for a reliever. I really did. I thought they'd get maybe one, maybe two, and they did not, which kind of sucked. Tanner Rourke, as far as his contract went, I didn't know the parameters of that, but Nate Jones is the guy that I'm thinking of. Nate Jones is the guy that I'm thinking of. I thought maybe they would go out and get a Nate Jones or somebody like that, one of the solid, decent young relievers that's available at the trade deadline, but they didn't. They stood pat, and I think that might seal the fate that they might not make the playoffs as the defending World Series champions. You got to add more than what you have right now. You had to make more opportunity to make your team better. And they didn't do that. They just sat on their hands and did nothing. And the Yankees did the exact same thing. So the two most high-profile franchises in baseball that everybody loves to talk about, loves to love or loves to hate, they didn't do anything at this trade deadline. And I think if you look at the American League, the Houston Astros got a lot better, and really the reason why the Astros felt the need to pull the trigger on a Zach Greinke is because they got some guys that are going to be free agents next year. Garrett Cole being one of them. So they get Zach Greinke, and they're going all in. They're trying to get better. Zach Greinke joins a rotation that includes Verlander and Garrett Cole. They traded a highly touted prospect by the name of Corbin Martin, right-hander J.B. Bukauskas, first baseman Seth Beer, and infielder Josh Rojas to the Arizona Diamondbacks to complete the deal. And Garrett Cole was quoted as saying that he is, quote, really excited and shocked, truly ecstatic. Really proud to be an Astro right now. Garrett Cole said when the players learned of the deal, there was a lot of hooting and hollering. We are ecstatic. We're getting a Hall of Fame pitcher, a craftsman. The Astros also acquired right-handers Aaron Sanchez and Joe Biagini and minor league outfielder Cal Steven from the Blue Jays, sending outfielder Derek Fisher to Toronto. And I think Derek Fisher, no slight against him, but his stats are not that great. He's barely played, and we'll see what happens there. The Arizona Diamondbacks actually countered losing Zach Greinke in the rotation by acquiring right-handed starter Mike Leake from the Seattle Mariners. Leake is 9-8 with a 4.40 ERA this season for Seattle. He's in his fourth year of a 5-year, $80 million contract. But Greinke's stats, 10-4 with a 2.90 ERA and 23 starts this season. Entering Wednesday, the right-hander, who actually won a Cy Young Award with the Royals in 2009, was 197 and 122 with a 3.36 ERA in 16 major league seasons. And he pitched today. He pitched against the Yankees, struck out 7 in 5 innings, and left the ballpark without saying a word to anybody once he found out he was traded. Probably didn't want to be traded, but too bad, so sad. And I really believe that for the Houston Astros, and it was written and tweeted by a lot of other people, but I couldn't agree more, that the Houston Astros are the rich getting richer. I think the Astros are the favorite in the AL, and I think they're the favorite for the World Series. They have the lineup. They have the starting rotation. And they have the bullpen. Aaron Sanchez will most likely, in my opinion, pitch out of the bullpen, and his sinker curveball combo out of that bullpen will be very fearsome. I think he's going to do very well out of the bullpen for the Houston Astros. They got a lot of pieces on that team. They've perfected the art of manipulating their cap and finding the right payroll players, finding the right players to pay, and working around that. Justin Verlander, future Hall of Famer. Zach Greinke, future Hall of Famer. Garrett Cole. I mean, that rotation is as good as any in the AL, as fearsome as any in the AL, and I think their bullpen is the best in the AL. And their lineup is the best in they're the best team. I really believe that. They won the World Series 2 years ago, and I think they're going to do it again. I think they're the favorite. The Yankees let the parade go by. The Boston Red Sox let the parade go by. They did not do their due diligence. They did not make the moves that they needed to make. And we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. But I think I'm right. I think I hit the nail on the head here. I really do. They're going to be a tough team to beat. And when you look at the NL, I think the Dodgers have to be in play always. Cubs definitely have to be in play. Braves have to be in play. But there's no clear-cut NL favorite right now. Brewers are in play as well. They made a lot of moves today. The Nationals are in play as well. But there's no one team that I can look at and say that's the team. I think the Houston Astros and the Cleveland Indians in the AL might have surpassed the Yankees and the Red Sox in the AL. The Indians and Astros and the Yankees and Red Sox have been the Fab Four in the AL for like the last 3-4 years now. But I think the Indians and the Astros made their teams significantly better. And I want to speak on this just briefly. Trevor Bauer, I felt like he was starting to become a nuisance to the Cleveland Indians, where teammates of Yasiel Puig love Yasiel Puig. They love his edge. They love the chip on his shoulder that he plays with. They love that. Yasiel Puig sticks up for his teammates. Trevor Bauer, for the lack of a better term, has just kind of made an ass out of himself these last few months, especially in his last start as a Cleveland Indian. Took a baseball and whipped it into center field at Kauffman Stadium. There was no excuse for that. No excuse for that at all. It's ridiculous. And Yasiel Puig is that right fielder that they really need. He's one of the best right fielders in the game defensively, one of the more phenomenal outfield arms in the league, arms in general, as a outfielder, as any player, ranking near the top in the majors. And Franmil Reyes, I really like him as a DH. I think he's a solid DH. Solid DH. He's got Ortiz-esque power. And I don't say that lightly. I wouldn't just say that just to say it. David Ortiz is one of my favorite players ever. And I think Franmil Reyes has very similar power to David Ortiz. Hits from a different side of the plate, but you get the point. And I really feel like the Indians got better. I feel like the Astros got better. I feel like the Diamondbacks did what they needed to do. They got younger. They beefed up their farm. And they were going to lose Zach Greinke. They had overpaid Zach Greinke. They were going to lose him. They couldn't continue to pay him. Not that they were going to lose him, but they couldn't continue to pay him based on their payroll, based on what else they need. So it was a great payroll clearing move for the Diamondbacks to make, and they went out and they made it. But who was the winner of the trade deadline? Honestly, I would say the winner of the trade deadline as far as making a trade to help your team, I would say it's the Indians. But the winner of the trade deadline that I think will win the World Series because of the trades that they made today is definitely the Houston Astros. And that's it. I'm Ryan Thomas. That was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. You're tuning in live on Spreaker.com, where this is streamed every week. Shout out to Spreaker.com. And you can listen to this on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify. As well, join the takeover. Follow me on Twitter at Ryan Thomas Take. And I look forward to hearing from you. Take care, everybody.